Gunther, hi. Thanks
Nice
for your
to meet
time. Yeah. This is my, I don't know, the first interview in the classical Austrian atmosphere. I know that you have a lot of trips. You are very, very active. You were in the United States. Always you supported Ukraine. Wherever you be, you support Ukraine. Thanks for your supporting us.
I do my best for Ukraine and Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава. I have three questions,
Please.
very short questions, concerning the current international situation and current so-called NATO integration. Next month there will be Vilnius summit, a very important political, geopolitical summit, and we still don't have any forecast what will be, whether Ukraine will be part of NATO or we will be
Absolutely,
the
Ukraine should
So
be.
what do you think? What happened inside NATO? So what we have to anticipate from this summit?
I think the most important is to get a clear invitation towards NATO for Ukraine and also for Kosovo, for Bosnia, for Austria, and maybe also for Ireland, because there's the open door policy. And what's now happening is President Zelensky, during his visit in Den Haag, he was very clear that a similar position should be taken, like we have done it last June, to have candidate status for Ukraine in the European Union. Now the logic is to say absolutely, once the war is won, Ukraine will and can join the NATO alliance.
And what do you think? Is this challenge not only for Ukraine, it's for whole structure of NATO, as I understand, because you said in other countries which also should be adopted, but I see that inside NATO they don't have unanimous decision about the integration of all countries.
So look, it's always controversial. The question of Ukraine NATO membership is keeping us busy since 2008, since the Bucharest summit. But it's now time to give Ukraine security, because all the reconstruction, all the integration effort of Ukraine into the EU can only happen reasonably well if there is security. And security cannot be provided by Europe or by Poland or by Sweden, Finland alone. So we in Europe have to very much depend on America. We are partners and allies, and the integration of Ukraine in NATO and in the EU means that we share this responsibility with the United States. To say EU only EU membership would mean that the Europeans alone have to secure in the future Ukraine. And that's very, very difficult without America. So NATO membership is the logic next step.
Did I understand correctly that the situation in Ukraine changed also the position of Finland, of Sweden, and so it really changed the structure of decision-making process in NATO?
Absolutely. It's now very much we are coming to a point of convergence between the EU and NATO. And now you have seen the third framework agreement, which was signed on the 10th of January 2023.
Yes.
It was very important step. And I'm personally advocating as well for the European Union to be a NATO member. That's the logic. That's why I'm so intensively fighting for Ireland to join NATO, which is now in June. They will have big consultative assembly. And so Ireland is the logical next step towards NATO membership. And then Austria, Malta, and obviously also Cyprus. So we have to make a choice here. Are we together or we are divided?
This is my second question concerning the Austria. So we used to hear neutrality. We used to this political position for many years of Austria. But I think the war in Ukraine changed even this position. And I see that in Austria there's the public opinion that something should be done concerning the security of your country. So what does it mean, neutrality in the modern world for you, and what does it mean, neutrality of Austria?
Andrew, my friend, it's meaningless. Neutrality must be dumped to the garbage heap of history.
Okay, it's old-fashioned.
Altmodisch. It's a relic, like a dinosaur from the long gone past. Because in 1955, when the Soviet Union was occupying, first liberating, then occupying Austria, they didn't go without neutrality. We were forced to accept it. And so at that time we got unity for it. That was good. So it was a useful deal, a useful compromise during the Cold War. But we live in different times now. And it must be dumped now, because now we have this absolute terrible war of Russia against Ukraine, and the economic war against our livelihood with the energy weapon, and also our institutional war with Russia. So we must now make it very clear that we are ending this neutrality, that we are joining the West fully. And what we started in 95 with the EU membership must be completed with NATO membership now. Austria must join NATO.
Why do you think the not all Austrian elites want to change themselves very quickly? Is it some kind of national tradition to be very conservative?
No, because it is very comfortable, because Russia has started a lot of investment in Austria. When Putin came, he has this traditional love affair for the German-speaking areas because of his language skills, and he thought neutrality is a really wonderful tool to neutralize Austrian business and economic elites. And since 23 years, he has built up a big position in Austria via the energy sector, in property sector, a lot of money laundering, a lot of money parked in Austria. And that has some influence, obviously. But we have to liberate Austria from this Russian grip and clean up this past kind of complicity with the Russian system. And we have to really turn fully into the West. And that means also politically, because what we have seen is that we have in other countries like Finland and Sweden, the conservative parties, like the People's Party in the Kokoomus in Finland or the Swedish Moderaterna, they have always stayed on the NATO line. And now the opportunity came, and they simply jumped on that opportunity by joining NATO, and it has been successful. In Austria, unfortunately, the Austrian People's Party has lost this direction. And that's the reason why we are not with a serious NATO campaign, because our Chancellor and Party Chairman, Mr. Nehammer, he has basically said no to this debate in last year, when I was making a lot of advertisement and a lot of open ads for joining NATO. In May, when it was official Finland and Sweden, he said end of the debate. And that's a tragic mistake. We must have this debate, we must continue.
Did you understand correctly that this so-called Austrian neutrality is some kind of obstacle for the further Ukrainian support from European Union, from NATO?
I mean, imagine, it's incredible. Austria is one of the very few countries who is not delivering any weapons to Ukraine. Even the demining effort, which is the most humanitarian thing, meant to help Ukraine with the Austrian military expert to demine the regions which are already liberated. In Kharkiv, in Sumy, there's a lot of mines left. And then Austria could offer this support, but we are not, because we are hiding under this immoral cover of neutrality. It's very bad. I'm very disappointed. And even our state president and even some of the key personalities say, at least let's do the demining. But no, because of neutrality. And you see, the real nature of this neutrality is basically we don't want to offend Russia. And we are still afraid of Russia. We are still dependent on the energy. We still have a lot of financial interest in Russia, like Raiffeisen Bank, like OMV, and that's very deeply problematic. And that's why we're not even demining. I'm very disappointed.
Gunther, you described very, very deeply this problem, and thanks for your very objective professional analytics. My third question, what to do? So what tricks, what steps we have to do together, Ukraine and all the people who think like you, to overcome this problem? What public opinion and politicians, what we have to do?
I call on the Ukrainian authorities to stop accepting neutrality as a fact. Because where's the problem? President Zelensky always has a sentence in his speech in the parliament when half of the parliamentarians run away, like it was a disaster. So the situation is, he is always saying, I accept neutrality. With the ambassador here of Ukraine, I accept neutrality. No, Ukraine should stop to accept this. Neutrality is a cover for anti-Ukrainian policy. So you, as Ukraine, must make a change in your state policy towards Austria and say neutrality is against solidarity, it's against Europe, it's against Ukraine, it's against the EU, and this is simply unacceptable. And this policy I want to change. With the help of Ukraine, we will change Austria.
This is the first step.
This is the first step.
But also I have a question about this step. Maybe our government writes that it can some kind of create a problem for the displaced persons here, for the humanitarian support, or no?
We are human beings, and Austria is full of solidarity.
It's so society, society, support, I mean, of Ukrainians. It's some society support, it not depends on full of the government, as I understand,
Look, Austria is also not doing so much, like Germany, for example.
In comparison,
In comparison, we are not so generous like Germany. we could do much more. And we are overall, when you count together what Germany is doing, or what Slovenia is doing, or what Poland is doing, or what Lithuania, we are on the minimum. So what you are afraid of?
Okay, this is first step. What about the Austrian political situation, or the public opinion here? What also we have to do to influence on the process? Yes.
I mean, you are now making a big campaign for Ukraine to join NATO. Why don't you make a campaign as well for other countries to join NATO? Because if it's true for Ukraine, it's true for Austria, it's true for Ireland, it's true for Malta. And it's not a coincidence that these three countries are the countries who do most of the money laundering in Europe. Cyprus, Malta, Austria, Ireland are the centers of Russian money laundering.
Yeah, Russia
Let's
used
not
it.
forget that. And why don't you attack this? Because we are in a big institutional confrontation with Russia as well. And when we have this kind of negative role models like neutrality, Ireland, Austria, then they say, oh, we are neutral, we are for peace. And then ultimately the idea comes, America wages a war together with Ukraine, and this is a provocation, and all these things. All these conspiracy theories are very much in Austria, in Ireland, in Malta, because we have allowed this debate to be a very big cover for anti-Ukrainian and anti-American and anti-European policies. So we must be consistent in our foreign policy approach, in our institutional approach, and that means NATO for all.
Okay, thanks for your analysis. I hope we will meet in the future and speak about more precise details. Thanks for your help, and I think we can cooperate in some way.
I'm looking forward for a enlarged Ukraine in NATO and to be together and united, also Austria.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot.
Gunther. Thank you.